Unconscious bias is a very real thing that we struggle with in the design process. And you have been asked to do an activity that deals with unconscious bias. And I'll have some students that will come in and they will actually do the discussion side of the activity, so you can sort of feel like you're participating in a discussion, but you have this idea of what happens and that you're not alone in the activity that you did and that others are doing it and also struggling with the same idea. And this activity had these three different sets. Unconscious bias we deal with all the time in the workplace. And Google and a bunch of other companies are really struggling with it because they're looking at it from a development perspective. And it comes back to that idea of how do you develop for all these different cultures, all the different diversity, if you can't represent all that diversity on your development team. We have this unconscious bias, but can we be aware of it? Can we be aware of our biases? And that is actually critical on this, because I don't want you to sit there and say, oh, we have to get rid of all biases. And the fact is we all have it. We have it for psychology, and it's a survival instinct that we have. Many years ago, someone saw a lion eat their friend, and they formed opinions that hairy things with sharp, pointy teeth are bad. And they survived because they made an association. And humans are really good at pattern mapping. Taking our labels, taking our boxes and say, this fits in this box, this fits in this label. And the fact is we're always going to be that way because it's how our brains are wired. And it's not always bad because, as the caveman who's sitting there trying to run away from the thing that eats its friend, it learns, it develops, and it makes these associations for survival. What makes it bad is when we unconsciously do it. Especially when we take human beings who the diversity is individual, not necessarily in the group, but in an individual, and we unconsciously label them with our labels, our bias, our assumptions about them before we know that. And when we're developing for this vast majority of clients that we have, these billions of people that our applications can reach as we're developing these things, if we're unconsciously biased about our audience, we're going to actually develop bad applications on there. So it's important to self-reflect. It's important to really look at it. And the interesting thing, and when you really go into the research about this, is the most common bias has nothing to do with race, gender, or even socioeconomic background. The most common bias that we share and the most common bias that shows up in applications are for those in need of special services. For example, those who are hearing or vision impaired. You'll notice on all my videos I purposely put subtitles because I'm trying to be conscious of unconscious bias that some people need the subtitles for the videos. And the University of Cambridge and Microsoft Inclusive Design Principles dove into this. And University of Cambridge actually says, let's analyze our general audiences for developing applications, and let's group them into difficulties. Some groups have severe difficulties, some groups have mild difficulties, some groups have minimal, and some groups have no difficulties. And these difficulties are in a spectrum. Some of them are permanent. For example, the person who is born blind and does not have the ability to see, that's a permanent disability. Temporary disability is when I had my eyes operated on, I could not see for a week on there. So that's a temporary one, but it is very, no pun intended, eye-opening for me when I could not see for a week. And I was in this situation where I suddenly, a very visual person, was dependent on not having my vision. And situational, nighttime versus daytime. We all have our vision change, and we all have different levels in which it changes when we have night vision versus daytime vision. And what they actually found is 21% of your users at any given time have no difficulties using your application. Less than a quarter on there. 16% have minimal, and 37%, so the largest of these groups, have mild difficulties on there. And then 25% have severe difficulties, in which we actually target special products for on that regard. But this giant range in here have difficulties using your application due to this spectrum of something that's permanent, temporary, or situational. And modern software design, modern software engineering has to take this into account. And Microsoft says, recognize exclusion, solve for one, extend to many, and then learn from the diversity. So they see all this diverse population, say, solve for one and extend out. But the one we're solving for is this, the mild difficulties. Voice enabling for phones, absolutely huge, for people who shake. My father has familiar tremors. Using a smartphone for him is extremely difficult. But the moment you have voice technology, he doesn't have to type on it anymore. So they solved it, and they thought this is a fun technology that we all get to use. We get to go ahead and tell our phone to go do something now on that. But for people who have familiar tremors, that was changing in how the phones worked on there. Different colors going into dark mode or changing the screen at nighttime has to do with people who are night blind or who struggle with night vision, but it helps all of us better see our applications. So they solved for one and then extended it to many, and we take it for granted, all these different neat features, like, well, this is a new neat feature that we get to see. But for the group that they were solving that for, they were learning it and adding diversity into it. And all these interconnections and all this different way we look at society has to be part of modern software design and also how we look at the problems and divide it up.